Hello and welcome to Money 9. Yesterday, RBI concluded its MPC meeting in which it once again increased repo rate by 50 basis points to control inflation. And more recently, last week, the government released the GDP numbers for financial year 21-22. So keeping all those points in mind, today I am Pranav and here with me is my colleague Shaurya. And today we will discuss what is happening in the Indian economy and what is the way ahead. So Shaurya, my first question would be that in the meeting yesterday, the RBI also gave its outlook on inflation and GDP numbers. So how do we see it?
Well, Pranav, it's clear that RBI is focusing on controlling the inflation. Now, the question is why inflation is so high and why it's a huge trouble. Well, first of all, we should know that it's not just India's problem. Inflation is high across the world, and there are global reasons for it. Like, first, due to COVID, after when things started improving, there was a lot of bottlenecks because COVID first happened in China, then somewhere else. So that's why supply chain was impacted because everything is connected across the world. That was the first reason. After this, when things started improving, Russia attacked Ukraine. So that also again put pressure on supply chain, that is putting pressure on inflation. Besides this, we are also noticing that commodities prices are rising so high. We know crude is above $100 continuously. So all that is creating problem not just for India. Even developed countries are facing a lot of problems. Inflation is multi-decadal high. And that's why RBI feels like, yeah, if we will control inflation, growth will take a hit. But right now, growth is not a bigger problem, inflation is the bigger problem, and that's why RBI said that inflation will stay above 6% for the first 3 quarters of this financial year. And keep in mind that 6% is the upper band. If the inflation is above it, RBI is not comfortable. So that's why RBI wants to reduce the inflation, and so interest rates are being increased.
Shaurya, how is the economy looking from a consumer side? I think that's a very relevant question, so I would come with that.
Yeah, before that, I should add that RBI gave its projection of how much GDP it sees for this year. And RBI sees that India is growing at the rate of 7.2% for financial year 2022 and 23. Now, let's come to your question. What's happening from consumer side? Well, consumer side, if we see the confidence is impacted because they are facing higher prices, higher crude oil prices, higher day-to-day items, so they're not ready to spend. But still, if we see the mixed indicators, like if you look at mobility, how things are moving across the country, this shows demand is there. Also, if you look at collections on tolls, that is high. Besides this, like in even in consumer segment, there's fragmented way. If you look at textile industry or fast food restaurants, their demand is very high. Those industries are bullish that consumers are spending without any problem. But if we go to consumer durables like FMCG items, milk, biscuits, that's where consumers are trying to reduce their consumptions, and data shows that volumes are declining. So that's a problem for those companies. If you look at automobiles, in automobiles demand is there, but due to supply shortages, people are not able to get the automobiles. Still, demand is not that high, and even there prices are rising. So consumer segment is mixed. But it seems even in future, after some time, consumer side will improve because one, in rural areas, monsoon is good, so you expect that rabi production will be higher. At the same time, their non-agriculture wages are increasing, and also one more thing that if prices are getting high of foods, we are facing problem. But for farmers, that's a good news. They're getting higher prices, so they will be in a position to spend money. And if you look at urban areas, a lot of unorganized sector which do small normal businesses, they used to face problems because of lockdown. Now that sector is also opening up because economy is opening up, so demand can also come from that side. So yes, there is pain for consumers for 1 or 2 quarters, but after that we will see a boom.
Businesses are a very important part of Indian economy. So, keeping their perspective in mind, I would come with another question. So, my question would be how businesses are dealing with all the headwinds like COVID, high inflation, supply chain disruption, and all other factors.
Right. See, businesses have a long-term perspective to doing business and also short-term. If you look about long-term perspective, that's what they decide to do new investment and capital expenditure to expand their businesses. And for that, we see that ICRA, which is a rating agency, it said that project announcement of new projects are at 11-year high. Means from long-term perspective, businesses are very optimistic. But in short run, as you mentioned, there are a lot of problems. However, here also indicators are mixed. Like sales of GCB is increasing, which shows manufacturing activity is happening. Also, steel consumption is higher, which is being used to produce lot of things. That's good news for businesses. But another good news is that capacity utilization, how much capacity they have and of its portion, how much they're using, it's increasing continuously, which is again indication that demand is coming and businesses are having in a good situation. One more thing to note is that they are taking more money even for long term projects and also for short term their day to day needs, which again shows that there's a higher need for money, also considered to be a good activity. Also, the loan growth has been so high in recent times, and not just by big companies, small, medium, micro companies are also taking a lot of loans, which either shows that they are facing high input cost pressure or they are having good demand. Now, that's good side. Negative side is that inflation is even higher for businesses. Like for consumers, inflation is ranging around 7%, but for businesses, it is in double digits, close to 15%. So that's why businesses' profits are getting squeezed. But they feel in coming time, they have to face some time a pressure. But after that, when these supply chain issues will get resolved, and there are indications being made that these issues have started getting better, then businesses will see a good boom in short-term demand, and in long run, they are very confident about it.
That was a good thing to hear. So, Shaurya, we looked at the economy from consumers' point of view and also businesses' point of view. But what about the government? I mean, what is the government doing to help the economy?
Right. See, government needs to balance lot of things. They want growth, but they also wants to control the inflation. At the same time, they also need to take care how much money they have to spend and how much revenues they are getting. So, looking at all these considerations, first of all, government in its budget decided to spend more in manufacturing activities like creating roads, build bridges, so that there can be ecosystem in which even businesses will start spending more. Second thing what government has stated recently, it has reduced the excise duty on petrol, and also raw materials for steel industry and other industries have been reduced in import duty, so that those materials can come at cheaper rate. And they have also decided to prevent the export of wheat. All these things are being done so that at local level, at domestic level, situation for consumers can be good and even for businesses. However, it's a trade-off. If one is doing good, someone has to accept the loss, and that's what government is fearing. Government is expected to have higher borrowing from the market, and this means government will have to borrow at higher rate. So if government is borrowing at higher rate, everyone else will have to borrow even more higher rate. That's a consequence, but government will have to bear the loss. But if that loss leads to other players like businesses, consumers getting happy and they start spending more, then situation will get good. Also, if you look at external environment, like I said, the situation started improving at the global level. Supply chain issues are there, and also our exports are increasing. So overall, we can conclude in the economy that for 1 or 2 quarters, until inflation is high, consumers will not be confident, when businesses will not be confident, there will be limited spending. But gradually, when prices will start reducing, and one more thing, for jobs are quite high, like high job employment is there. If you look at reports of agencies which produce like hire people, they are saying that job requirements are quite high. Companies are posting for jobs, so people will apply, jobs will be there. If companies are posting costs, they are also bullish about it. So few, if companies, people, government can handle few quarters somehow, after that sky is the limit for them.
So at this point, we can only hope that Indian economy keeps growing and keeps following a healthy trajectory. So that was all from our side. For more such news stories and discussions, keep watching Money 9.